Hello there, YouTube. We are back with another video. I'm joined by the boys, minus Jorel. We've got TJ, RB, and Rio.
Howdy.
Jorel's off he's in the D2 trenches.
Yes.
We can't find him. He's been fighting the shaper.
Yeah, he's fighting the final shape.
The final shape, yeah.
Godspeed, soldier. But we are back with sort of a continuation of our discussion of where the meta's at. You know, if you haven't seen our previous video, we kind of broke down sort of like a meta report, kind of reflecting on a previous tier list that we compiled prior to BT-16 coming into fruition, and kind of talking about where we are now after we've gotten a good amount of regionals under a belt. This particular video is going to sort of focus in a little bit more and talk about cards that we feel like, before we get too crazy with it, just should be in the consideration, or at least be in the discussion for maybe some action, right? Whether it be a restriction, a limitation, or even coming off of the current restriction list. This is by no means a definitive, like, they must be hit, they must go. This is just like a list of cards that we felt like have done enough damage to be at least talked about, right? And we want to bring that discussion to you guys in the community.
Things that I think none of us would be surprised if they got hit.
Right. Mm-hmm. This is by, like I said, this is by no means do all of these cards need to be limited. No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
But yeah, so hopefully you guys do enjoy this video, and hopefully we can spark some discussion, you know, after we've had a pretty, I would say, I don't want to call it controversial, but I think definitely like very well talked about start to the BT-16 meta. But before we hop into the video itself, a couple of quick things. You know, if you like our content, you want to support us boys on the channel, please do consider hitting the like and subscribe button. We would greatly appreciate it. And lastly, check out our socials, which are linked down in the video description below. Without further ado, let's start talking some Ukkomons.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think everybody's talked about this. I don't think this is any sort of surprise thing. We'll try and go through these pretty quick so this video is not too long. But like, I think BT-16 Ukko, admittedly, is one that people talk about being on a lot of times. I personally think that it's somewhat fair, but I think that the Ukko engine in general, and having both Ukko, because I think the big thing is having access to 8 Ukkos. I think that's what you said before, RB. I think that was
it's more so that, like, combined, right? They're just, it's so consistent, and they do different things, but they both get you so much like value.
Yeah, so
much advantage.
They feed into each other with Louis as well, which actually is another card that could be, I guess, on this list if we wanted to put it on there. But I feel like Ukko would be the more name problem than Louis would be.
I don't think Louis deserves to be on this list, but yeah, the Ukko.
I think if Louis were to say like gain a memory and hatch similar to what Ukko did, I think it would be a problem. But the fact that Louis only gives you a memory is, I think, balanced. Ukko, like promo Ukko, giving you the memory, but then accelerating your turn, like, by a full-fledged turn, by giving you the ability to hatch, go into another rookie, which, like, for example, like other decks like that like to build a little bit, I think it's okay. But like with Nume that just likes to spit out bodies like crazy, like getting that extra egg hatched and with a rookie is just crazy value.
Yeah, agreed. It's constant aggression.
Now that you have 8 targets with which you can do that, or I guess not even just 8, you have 10 technically with Louis. You know, push an extra body out. That's pretty big.
And I think something to be discussed with Ukko as well is moving forward. We know that we're getting a bunch of new hybrid cards come BT-18, where they don't care about their rookie lineup. Their rookie lineup can be whatever they want it to be. So when you look at what Ukko did for red hybrid and how it kept that deck relevant, when you put that with cards that have already been scaled up to sort of a modern standard, because you know a lot of we've said this before during the sort of breakdown video before this, that red hybrid still uses a lot of older cards. But if you take it with all the new cards that it gets, and then you put a rookie engine like this in it, where it's just constantly cycling and finding pieces and gaining memory, it might be big spooky.
Yeah.
But that's just a theory, a game theory. Anyways, okay, so moving on. I think that's good enough for Ukko.
I miss you.
Next up is some Nume pieces. So Numemon X and Monzaemon X, and to an extension, Edamon, the EX5 Edamon, because he's run in that deck. So the one thing these cards all have in common is that they all give you some means of floating another body on board, which is what Nume loves to do. And then, mind you, there's other cards that do that too. Like there is like the Platinum Nume, that does it as well, that they ideally like to use. But I think these are the cards where a lot of those combos start, or a lot of these plays sort of really are able to consistently happen. I mean, you have Nume X, who his alternates and his on deletion inheritable both do the same thing as long as you have a Numemon and sources, or if you're just inheritable, which you can be very easily tucked by RBO1 Monzai, or even the Waru Monzai, the newer one. And then you have Monzai X, who can spit out a Nume for free, or just a level 3, which could be another Ukko, for example. Which can help you extend your plays. And then in all turns, when something is played, not by an effect, just played, one of your opponent's Judgement gets the -2000 DP for each of your Judgement until the end of their turn.
Until the DP is nuts.
Yes, yeah. So, and with how this deck wideboards, when using the Ukkos with Louis and everything else that it gets with the Nume floats, you get just super wide boards so fast that can easily neg like 10, 12, 14k like it's nothing. So I think these are cards that we could see possibly being discussed about as being problems, because they are sort of, I mean, X-Antibody stuff's always been powerful, and these two cards definitely give that deck a big oomph.
I will say sort of like a discussion point too, is that between these sort of like two groups, right? I think if you limit the Ukkos to 1, the deck still functions, and it still functions pretty decently to a degree, right?
Yeah.
I feel like if you hit Nume X or Monzae X, like, I think that's
too much.
Yeah. I think you almost just kill the deck at that point.
I think that's a good point. Yeah. I don't think we would see any of the top bro cards being on the same list as each other if we were to get a restricted list.
Right.
And keep in mind too, while we're going over all this, there hasn't been anything announced for one. This isn't like a prediction video for that.
Right.
If anyone's like starting to think like, wait, why are they talking about this? Is there a restriction somewhere? That's not the case. There's a lot of discussion in the community right now about what cards could be on a list, and we figured we'd go ahead and toss our hat in the ring.
Yeah, it's mainly just thoughts rolling out from us rolling out of a meta and what we saw. So
I think that's it for Numemon and Monzaemon. I don't know if you guys had something else.
Moving on to
Edamon.
This card is insane.
So
we talked about Sylphie before. This card is Valkyriemon's like level 5 that
it's his best friend. It's his best friend.
This card going, you put it on board. If they have something, you Valk and you force something to attack, and then you Valk. Like, the combo is just so nutty. It functions as like a board wipe sometimes, and it functions as like getting rid of a boss monster in a lot of cases.
Yeah, most things sit at 12k nowadays right now without having some other means of boosting them or having to like do something else to get the boost.
Yeah. It puts it down to 9k.
Yeah, and then it gets -5 off of the Valkyrie Acevo.
Yeah. And as soon as it checks something, you just delete it.
Yeah. And to even top that all off, this Edamon doesn't look for a specific archetype, right? Like he just digivolves for 1 cost cheaper over a Ukkomon in name, but everything his on play with digivolving effect doesn't care about any inheritables. It doesn't care about anything like that. Just -3k, and then does the start of main phase. That's true. And then the biggest thing.
A lot of it is Sylphie.
Yeah. The biggest thing.
You can put him in Sylphie, honestly.
I'm putting him in.
You could put him in Sylphie. You could put him in. Oh God, I don't like giving you ideas. Anyways, but even the inheritable, if the opponent's turn once per turn, when an opponent's Digimon attacks, you may reveal top 3 cards of your deck. You may play 1 black or yellow Digimon card with a play cost of 3 or less among them without paying the cost. Trash the rest. That works perfectly with what Nume wants to do.
Yeah.
So he still serves. I mean, so you can Evo or play him, force your opponent to swing. It's already -3. You go Valkyrie Ace -5. Opponent's turn effect, spit out another body from the top of your deck. They check security. They instantly get popped if they're 8k or less. unless they're Magna X and they're able to do something weird with it. You're right. So it's rough. But even then, sometimes because of how this all works,
yeah, it's a very
you
good
compare it with Monzaemon X's effect to even further DP reduce stuff.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like prior to actually doing the whole Edamon play. So it just goes crazy. Sorry, I had a brain fart. But yeah, so Edamon is run normally in those X because Suka Poop's really just not doing anything right now. Nume's just infinitely better.
Yeah.
Yeah, and DP reduction is arguably probably the best form of removal right now, particularly when it comes to Magna X, because it's a lasting effect. You know, and it's not just like a straight up deletion or removal. It's something. It's something that is more lasting that can get around Magna X.
It lasts until their turn, so it gets around pretty much
a huge counter,
all protections, honestly.
Yeah.
And then it forces them to attack before they get to respond with anything else.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But speaking of Magna X.
Speaking of Magna X, so the bottom row here you'll see is pretty much
Magna
all vaccine armor cards. I think Rio and I probably have the most experience with dealing with all this stuff. Rio, what do you think?
To Magna X in particular, or everything.
Just wherever you want to hit, man.
Honestly, Pad is an issue. That is an issue.
Yeah.
And like being a yellow player, I understand. Like I've heard both sides, right? So it's like Pata is clearly a problem because it lets you net positive on Digivolution, which is wild. Like it should not allow you to go plus.
Yeah.
+7.
But the thing is, it's also
from like you don't need anything else. You just need the Pata and something in your security.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, on the other side, right? The other side of the argument is that Yellow has no good starter rookies right now. So it's like, oh, Pad is kind of necessary. But it just does too much, man. Like, it should not be able to get slotted into everything vaccine.
Yeah. I'll think about where the other rookies are. And, like, Luga's, I think, the only one that does something even remotely close to the
Gabu
value.
is pretty good. Gabu's okay.
Gabu's okay. Yeah, you're right about that one.
I think the biggest thing for Pata is that all of the other SR rookies that we've gotten have to have a tamer to interact with in some way.
Right.
Yeah.
Luga wants to fuck a tamer. Gabu,
Yeah.
Agu, like, well, you know, I guess Pal doesn't care, and like neither does Goma. But, and I guess aside from some of the main characters, I guess like Pal, Bio, Goma, they are all fine. They don't care. But the rest all need a tamer to interact with that are really strong.
Yeah.
Pata doesn't need a tamer. Pata just goes up. It does this whole thing. Now it can whiff on security. If it does that, it hurts. But
it doesn't neg you.
Exactly. Well,
I don't think the other cards.
no, I think it does. I would say it does because you have to evo for 4 if you're running vaccine armors, unless you have a training on board, and that is usually enough to pass turn, and you're probably gonna lose that body at that point.
Yeah, because like in my mind, when I say it doesn't neg you, I mean I'm saying that like it doesn't make you pull a card out and then just whiff it. You know what I mean? Like it's not like
you lose security. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you just have to play regular Digimon.
I guess, but you play it in such an inefficient manner that I think you do still get negged.
Well, I mean,
right? Because you lose the Pata.
You're talking about it in a specific situation with armors where it has to evo for 4 because the things that it's
I know. I'm aware that there's other things, but that's the only real time that it's a problem right now.
Right.
And I'm looking at right now. Like, yes, evoing for free into anything is spooky, and being able to gain off of it is spooky, but being able to go around that much of a cost that you have to pay for an evo is huge.
No, I get what you're saying. I'm just saying that it's specifically in the deck that wants to evo into things that are very expensive, right? In other like vaccine decks, it doesn't hurt as much because you're not gaining such a huge.
Right.
That's what I just said. Right. Yeah. No. It's. Yeah. Exactly. It is definitely an issue being to gain.
It's a very unbalanced method of just efficiency, you know, and I think when we talk about unbalanced levels of efficiency, I mean, you also have cards like Emissary, right? Which essentially do the same thing, which is like a lifeline if you do with a Pata, where like if you do have a training, for example, right, and are able to save turn and go into an armor form, you can just like emissary into like a level 5, right?
Yeah.
And then go into Magna X at that turn. It's a lifeline if Pada whiffs, and it's a very good one at that too. And there also have been moments too where I've hit it in security and the opponent plays a Pada and I'm like, well, darn it. Like now there's another Pada on board.
Yeah, exactly.
Pada does have the best like support cards for it, like TKs and Insane Tamer. It just almost automatically lets you activate Pada, guarantee the next turn, and you push it up.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think this also will bring up the point, though, that TJ, you've made this point multiple times on the channel already, is that if you hit Pada Yellow Vaccine as an archetype, just dies.
Yeah, which isn't, I guess for itself says how unhealthy the card is, but at the same time, it's also like, until we get something to sort of like replace it.
Yeah.
I think that
even remotely.
I think that it's fine. Because the thing is, it's really only an issue in Armor Vaccine. In every other deck, it's just like, it's good, but it's not insane. And that's mostly because it's paired with Magna X.
Correct.
Who, you know, just ignores everything your opponent wants to do. And I think to focus more on him to move away from Pada so we don't drag on for it for too long. Magna X, I think we've all agreed, I know me and Arby have said it a bunch, that it should have been one or the other. It should have been like Digimon or options, not everything.
Right.
Being able to have protection from everything was just not necessary. It wasn't needed, man. It's so silly. On top of being able to gain DP and unsuspend, like, why?
Yeah, is your window for dealing with this card is like almost non-existent. It's only when it attacks, so you need an ace to do it, and you need something like that sits there. Like, you know, your opponent needs to let you like have something on the field.
Right. And even then, if they're running like the BT-14, BT-15 Yaromon, where they can just trash the security when attacking, then they don't care.
Yeah,
they just recover it later. It's just
the
like,
fact that you can also just proc it all turns is also extremely annoying too. You know, like if it was just a purely your turns, fine. Like you have built-in ADP, whatever. Sure, like you do your stuff, but at least it forces me to say, look, I gotta deal with it, and I have ways to deal with it. You know?
Yeah.
Whereas here, it's like, well, if I did anything, it just procs the effect again, and it's like, okay, well, he's just gonna stick there, you know?
Right.
Yeah. So I think that the thing we've said before, it's not that Magna X is an impossible card to work around. There is plenty of ways to work around it, and we all are aware of them very heavily. The bigger issue is what Magna X does to all the decks that actually could be maybe participating in the meta, but just can't because if they play against that deck, it's just an auto loss.
Yeah.
Correct.
Which it just isn't. It's just a bummer. It just creates this weird gap where you see like tier lists like what we had for our previous video, where it's just like 2 decks that are really meta defining, and then everything else there's some decent contenders, and everything else is just like, well, Godspeed, soldier.
What are we playing? One Piece now? What is this?
Yeah. But yeah, so that's him. Emissary, we talked about it a bit. It's all right. It's crazy. it's insane. I think that, and I think to the point of what we said for the top row, I don't think for the bottom row you'd see any of these on the same restriction list. Maybe Heavens and something with those, but even then, that's a tough call. But like, yeah, I could see a lot of like this they'd probably hit one of these. Ideally, I wish they just choice restrict Pada and Magna X.
I agree. That would make the most sense.
That would be great. I think that solves a lot of issues already. But yeah, so Emissary, I think it's a good card. I don't think we need to go too much into that.
Yeah, no.
Heavens. I'm gonna give a hot take, but maybe it's not a hot take. I think it's a necessary evil. I think it needs to exist right now.
I think it needs to exist right now. The only big reason that we kind of have it as like a point of discussion is that not just now, but in future metas when we start to see more triple color cards running around, it's going to be kind of nutty.
Because they make all of them yellow or green for some reason.
Yeah.
All of them have access to this card.
So you're just going to be popping stuff left and right with this card.
Well, and like the triple color cards that have half the pie. So then,
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
What don't you have at that point? Right?
Let me go ahead and just neg 24k across your board real quick. It's fine.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Mhm.
Or even more.
Yeah, I'm kind of with TJ. Like, as a person who, if you look at me funny, I'll slap a heavens on you.
Oh, I know that feeling. I know that feeling.
I've been there. I've been there.
Yeah, I love this card, but I hate when it gets used against me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean it's like we said. I think it's a necessary evil right now. I think when we get other options that are a bit better, I think then we start to divvy it up a bit. But there's just not many other really good removal options right now that work as well as Heavens does.
Sure.
Yeah. DP
And you know you want your options to have value, you know, and this card's even better because it's a 7 cost that can work really well going into you know, when we have so many ace cards around now.
Yeah.
It can be a very, very cheap card to play.
Sure.
But I can
that's
see
a good
people's
summary
complaints
of
about
stuff. You know, I think
Yeah.
this is a pretty good list of stuff to talk about. I think again, this is not like a call to restrict all of these cards. These are just cards
Right.
that we feel like in this current meta, in the way that things stand, these are the big sort of players in shaping all of what we're seeing right now. You know, and I think they
Agreed.
definitely warrant some sort of like, is this healthy for the game? If it is, great. If is it something that should be reevaluated, and so on and so forth. So that's sort of what we came up with. If there are other cards that you feel like warrant that sort of discussion, let us know in the comment section below. But we did want to spice it up just to wrap the video up real quick, is to start talking about cards that we want to see come off said restricted and banned list. So we've kind of put together a kind of potpourri of cards here.
Well,
Oh,
hold on.
oh,
I wouldn't say cards we want to come off the ban restricted list. I think it's there's some cards you want.
them
I
all.
know. There's maybe one card I actually want. The rest, I'm just like, I could see.
yeah.
I
yeah,
could.
yeah.
I think it would be okay. I'm not gonna say I want necessarily too many of these to come off the list, but I could see these cards coming off of the
Yeah.
list because I don't think they would make an impact where the meta's at right now.
Right, sure. That's a good point.
Cards that aren't necessarily that strong anymore and need to like be banned.
Yeah, exactly. I think let's
just start with the Gabus, right? You know,
Yeah,
I think just
spitball
kind
real
of like quickly go through them. Like all the Gabus, I feel like at this point are just unnecessarily hit. I think they kind of went in anticipation of Melga doing like crazy things, but Melga's essentially
no. It wasn't.
It was Anubis and Beelstar too, right?
No.
Oh,
It was Apocly. Apocly was.
Well,
the thing.
yeah.
They were all knee-jerk reaction to Bandai trying to solve Apocly without hitting Apocly itself and other things.
And then they had to do it anyway.
Exactly. And then they had to do it anyway. And then they kept these cards on there. Now, admittedly, Melga and other decks were very spooky with these, but I don't think that was the main reason. I think it's another reason to add in there. But the biggest reason that should be at the forefront there, I think, is Apocly. Because Apocly, admittedly, if Apocly came off the list right now, it would be the tier 1 deck.
Yeah.
It would just be winning.
Yeah.
But sorry, I just wanted to make sure we tossed that out there.
But I mean, I think these cards right now can come off. I don't see a reason why they should be restricted in the way that they are. Sort of like you said, right? Apocly's restricted. Melga still struggles against Magna, regardless of how how these Gabus do.
Melga's so bad right now, man.
Yeah.
They gave it all these tools to be like a purple or a blue deck, and they just said, yo, what if we just go ahead and make it so that you have to play it both ways, but it's not consistent. It's the least consistent version you could possibly have.
And not just it would be consistent, but they banned all of like the cards that made it consistent. So
well, that's what I'm saying. They basically banned it so you couldn't play pure purple, and they banned it so you couldn't play pure blue. You have to pick one or the other. Or you have to find like a middle road for the deck to be decent, and then it just struggles with consistency.
Right. And then the next one was Jet Sylphie. Thoughts on that one?
The card's scary. Recovery's big, but there's also so much aggression in the game right now that I don't even know if she would do that much.
Yeah, it's like, if anything, she's more of a climbing piece, and you have to pay the engine to do it, right? Because like you recover 1, and then they check you for like 3 next turn anyway. So what difference does it make at this point?
I think we talked about it before.
Or better yet, you fight a dog and he bounces it to your fucking hand.
True. Very, very true. Very true.
We do it over and over again. Goodbye. But yeah, it's the fact that she would let you go into a 5 for 3 essentially, right? Like this whole thing that we were talking about, Pada. Like Pada lets you basically, have turns where you can go into a 5 for only 3, because your level 4 is, and that's powerful. I don't think it's as powerful now, as it used to be.
That's what Bandit's designing around right now, where most of their level 5s for the hybrids just evo for 3 if they just can tuck something from trash, or like red hybrid still just uses Alda.
Yeah. So I definitely think it's worthwhile for it to just be considered. Again, like it's just, I think the game has evolved where this isn't as big of an issue, right? And similarly at that, I mean, Doru Gray, I know there's some mixed opinions on that, where people are like, if this becomes unrestricted, that Alpha becomes sort of like a big bogeyman, big problem card again.
Sorry, Bryce, he made us put this on here.
Listen, hey, listen, all right? And to my point, Bryce even started to agree with me at the end of the conversation. Bryce was just like, okay, I guess I can see it.
Yeah.
So
sure.
basically the whole thing at my point was that, yes, Alpha's an OTK deck. Yes, it can do loads of damage. But however, it's just like a lot of other decks that with their protections. If anything, it's worse, where it only has it for a turn.
Right.
That's it. Once that turn's gone, if you live that turn, that stack's probably going bye-bye. Yeah. And admittedly, there is ways to live that turn now, because there's so many blockers and redirects. Like Tyrant still can climb bigger than it, and just say, hey, I go ahead. Yeah, swing. That's funny, man. That's real funny.
It still has the weakness of being bounced. So.
Yes, it's also OTK deck in its core, right? Where it's gonna need time to search for pieces, and needs time to set up and get the memory stuff going and whatnot. So like it's a deck that, like Mirage, can just be too slow sometimes, or just not see its pieces.
That's true. If you OTK me, just do it quickly.
Yeah.
Let me die swiftly.
Sure, he makes the OTK more consistent because he gives you protection plus security attack plus 1. But at the same time, I also don't even know if he gets played that much right now.
Yeah.
Because Dex Doragora doesn't want to use him. You want the other Doragray to spit out bodies and have collision to evo into Doragora for free. So he'd really only be for Alpha, which Alpha right now is dead.
Yeah.
It is a dead deck. It can do some fun stuff sometimes, but it has to high roll so consistently, so crazily.
Just to kind of save a little bit of time, we can probably kind of speed through these last 5 because they're sort of just like there just for discussion purposes. Gray X, same thing. Like I think there's better, like when it was released, it was really good. I think the game has evolved where like it's not as crazy anymore, and I think arguably sometimes that protections that it gives, like if you don't have an X-Antibody, that protection is sort of like null and void. You kind of need to have that in there. So I think it's definitely in the consideration. We've talked about Intmon coming off just because BL's is still a very high rolly deck, Yeah. This does give it access to more high roll, but
with all the blockers and redirects,
I think there's more.
Yeah, for sure.
You just may not be able to even swing for a game. You can trash your security all you want, but you're probably gonna just deck out because you're never gonna be able to check security.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
There's just more powerful stuff out there right now.
Yeah.
I think.
Maka we kind of threw on there because we kind of see it as maybe a counter for Mirage to go up against Nume, but at the same time, losing the ability to be unredirectable from the BT-16 Maka does hurt the deck arguably too. So definitely think it's something that I would like to see it at like a 2 of in my deck, but I don't know if I would go any further than that.
Blossomon's just a free level 5.
Yeah.
It doesn't do anything other than just be a free level 5. And right now, green's really not doing much. Like the plants aren't doing much. I don't even know if you really run this in Tyrant.
They keep doing this, like like letting you go into a level 5 for 3 or less. It's just not that. I don't think it's that much stronger. I can see that it's a problem card because it's going to be used in every single green deck, but like,
Yeah.
I think it was more of a problem when like Bloom was running around rampant, but like now there's so many hard counters to Bloom that it just doesn't do much anymore.
And so often now our level 5s are where our very powerful inheritables are for most decks, right? Like that's where a lot of times our decks, like core, like real powerful inheritable is at. And so with her not having one and just being a free level 5, some cards it's just she's not very good for in general. Like Tyrant doesn't want her because you want the redirect. Yeah. You don't want to run her in Leo because you need all those other inheritables. Like there's just so many decks that are good right now for green that just wouldn't use her.
Sure. Right. And I think last card, just to kind of talk about it, is X4, Shaman X4. I want him off so badly. I think there's still, like, he's an 8k swing, but like TJ and RB have already mentioned, there's so many blockers now. Like, Cross struggles against Magna X in the sense that there's very little ways to climb over it. And being able to redirect stuff also hurts a lot too. A lot of the benefit that X4 gets you is if it is able to swing through and actually survive. And there are also a lot of just big bodies running around too in security, where even if you do get that 3k reduction from Darulu's inheritable, like you still are very prone to dying in security now too, where you just lose that effect.
Yeah, with the aces, it's also just like way more dangerous to play it and use an attack with it.
Right, exactly. It's so often just gonna because it's an end of attack, not when attacking, so it has to live the check.
Right.
So yeah.
So I think it would help the tempo out for Cross, but I don't think it was as busted as it was back when it first came out, where you were just able to like go for game after like a couple of turns.
Right. You just had the crazy loop.
Power crept towards, you know, like or even like just power crept over.
Yeah. Agreed. But that does wrap it up for our video, unless you guys had any other thoughts to throw in there.
No, I think
I have a thought.
Yeah.
Never mind, you can leave Jet Sophie on there. I sold all my foils, so I don't need them anymore.
But thank y'all for tuning in. Again, like our other video, hopefully this kind of gives you some tidbits to discuss, get the mind churning, get the gears grinding, as we kind of continue on the BT-16 meta. You know, we've got a couple more big tournaments coming up in the sort of month of July. The meta is going to keep evolving with the addition of EX6 as well, so it should be some exciting times ahead. We will be getting back to our scheduled match play commentary this week after we get some locals in with Sully's. So be on the lookout for some more of our regular content, but hopefully this was some, like, again, just some great stuff to get out there and just get the minds going with some thoughts. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let us know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Why are you looking at Mega Digimon Fusion? What you doing?
I'm just talking with it. That's all. I'm just having a conversation. You keep doing your thing.
It's the only banned card. As somebody who uses the card a lot, keep it there. Keep it.
But on that note, thank y'all for tuning in. We appreciate every one of you. Truly, we do. And hopefully we catch you on the next video. Bye-bye.
Bye.